So, here we go.
Okay, quick story. So I have impeccable timing. I bought this camera in February of 2020, right before all the lockdowns for COVID started in March.
Control of the coronavirus widens here in the U.S.
So we lost all of our job. But if I had to do it again, seriously, I'd do it again. I would buy this camera again, and even in that same circumstance, because it's been rock solid for us. Which leads me into my first pro. This camera is so versatile, and we've used it in a variety of environments, and it knocks it out of the park every single time with the image. Whether that be sports, whether that be interviews, whether that be commercial type work. I mean, this camera is a rock star. The image is fantastic. The low light is fantastic. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it really is. The image on this camera is next level. Speaking of versatility also, and if you know anything about Red, you know that these cameras are modular, and that's been a huge thing for us too. We've built this thing up with audio units on the back. We've got a small rig plate here that we can attach rails. We've used PL mount. We've got an EF mount on there right now. Got the side handle on right now, but we've done it without the side handle for gimbals. Like, this camera can fit a variety of circumstances, and that's huge for us as we're working. The other reason why I invested in this camera is rental rates. Now, it's been down a little bit because of 2020 and production was so down, but we average about $320 a day renting out our Gemini package. The next pro is the Red Raw R3D files. That was another huge selling point for me when looking into our next camera purchase, was having the flexibility in post of Red Raw, and it is awesome. I mean, no matter what kind of shoot we're on, it captures so much data. The compression rates, if it's something that we need to turn around quickly, and we don't need, crazy amounts of data, we can dial it up the compression. Or if it's something that we have to have a ton of data, or we're sending it to somebody else, we can, have the compression at a really low setting. So Red Raw is amazing, and it's honestly one of the big selling points for me when we were looking at buying our next camera. And the flexibility in post is so awesome. If you've never worked with Red files before and you want to, click the link below this video in the description, and we'll send you a couple of our clips from a shoot that you can work with. The next pro is low light. And besides having a Red and the Red files and all of that, that was a huge selling point for me when it came to buying this camera. Was I do a lot of stuff in available light, and I do a lot of event stuff that is also in available light. So I needed something that could hold up in those environments, but also still gave me that Red color science and gave me the Red ecosystem. So if you find yourself in a spot where you need to use the low light mode on this camera, you can push it to 3200 or even 6400 sometimes, and it still looks really, really good with, compared to the old sensor. If you're using just a Dragon sensor, a lot of times if you got past 1280 or 1600, it really didn't look that great. So that is a huge pro for this camera. It's incredible in low light. Okay, so we also have to talk about the cons of this camera. My number one beef with this camera is not the price, it's the boot up time. It seriously takes 5 days for the stupid thing to boot up. And if you're, in a situation, whether it be sports or an event or something like that, and you need the camera to turn on quickly, well, go ahead and just get a glass of water or something and come back, because it'll finally boot up by then. Seriously, the thing is so slow. Here, I'm gonna show you right now how slow it is to boot up. One. See what I'm saying? So that's my number one gripe. The number one con of this camera is boot up time for me. The second thing is cost, of course. Now, full disclosure, I paid $18,500 for this camera. It came with a body and 2 batteries and the EF mount. And then I have purchased additional batteries, the side handle, small rig stuff. So I've put another few $1,000s into the camera. So we're a little over 20 grand, but obviously that's a lot of money. And like I said, I have impeccable timing, and I bought this in February of 2020, right before the crash of the economy and the COVID lockdowns and all that stuff. So, but again, I do it again because this camera has begun to pay for itself with rentals. And truthfully, the image that we're getting out of this camera and the reliability, I know some people have had issues with Red reliability in the past, but honestly, this camera has been rock solid, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. We use this camera in a variety of different settings, but it's always not the right tool. Always make sure you get the right tool for the job. This camera is not perfect for everything. I'm filming this on a Canon 1DX Mark II, and there's times when I pick up the Canon to go to a shoot to do something that we don't need the Red for. Or I used to have a Blackmagic Pocket 4K. Those are awesome cameras too. And sometimes that's the tool that fits the job. For us, having this as a flagship camera is fantastic. And I really, really love it. But we also use the 1DX, we use Blackmagic 4K camera. I mean, we use a bunch of different other stuff, but having this as a flagship, I definitely wouldn't trade it for anything else. I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent there, but the other thing that I was talking about with the cons and the cost of this camera being around $20,000 used or 28-ish new is red accessories. They're so expensive. This stupid side handle, which is awesome, was $950. I think I bought it used for $750. Batteries are expensive. The red mini mags are really expensive. I'd love to upgrade the screen at some point. We will, but you know, it's $3,000 for the larger red screens. I mean, so all of those things play into the cost of this camera. But again, getting into that ecosystem and the image is just so good that ultimately it's worth it to me. Even though I love this camera so much, there are a couple other cons that I'm gonna mention. And the next one is the responsiveness of the UI. So on the interface, the touchscreen interface, I really love that. I love the idea, but to me, Blackmagic does a better job with this. The responsiveness of their touchscreens and their menu system is quicker, it's more responsive. The red sometimes just feels a little laggy. If you're dragging the ISO or if you're dragging aperture, something in the menu, like it just feels a little bit slow on the responsive time on this camera. A lot of times that's no big deal, but if you're trying to do something quickly, like I said, just same thing with the boot up times, if you're trying to do something quickly, it's not always the best thing to be, you know, waiting on something, or if it catches up or if it glitches a little bit while you're on set or on a shoot. The next thing is audio. So in my base IO V-mount module that I have on the back of this, there's just an 1/8 inch audio in, which I don't love at all. To get XLR in from Red, that module costs like $4,000, which is just ridiculous. And we don't want to spend that just to get XLR. So what we end up doing is getting a preamp that's got XLRs, and then we run the preamp to an 1/8 inch cord, and then we have to power the preamp. I mean, it's kind of clunky. It works for us. It works fine, but I would rather have the module that has the XLRs, but we don't want to pay the extra $3,000 or $4,000 it takes to get that module versus the one we already have. The other thing, and even though I love the image of these cameras, even going back to the Dragon sensor on the other Red cameras, it feels like the image always tends to lean a little bit green. I don't know why or for what reason, but it always tends to lean a little bit green, and we have to fix that in post, which is kind of tedious, but I mean, the image is really, really, really strong. It's just that I tend to notice that from time to time that the image will pull slightly green. If you're considering a Red, and especially Gemini, I would ask these two questions. Can we pay it off quickly, and are our clients gonna notice a difference? Because truthfully, if you're gonna spend this type of money, you wanna be able to make sure that you can do those two things. You wanna be able to pay it off quickly, and you wanna make sure that this is gonna be a noticeable difference for your clients. If you can answer those two, and you know you can pay it off quickly, and you know that's gonna be the next step for your company or your filmmaking journey as a DP or whatever those things are, if you can answer those, then I say go for it, because these cameras rock. If you found this helpful, please hit the thumbs up for us and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and leave those in the comments. We'll respond to every single question that we get. And again, thank you guys for watching as we try to build this channel. Like I said earlier, if you've never worked with Red files before and you want to, I'll have some Gemini clips available in a link below in the description. I'll have a couple of scenes and one low light scene as well, so you can mess around with this footage and see how it holds up in low light. Thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.